Before I introduce the speaker, I have some news. Remember a couple weeks ago, we heard that stirring message about Shiloh African Methodist Episcopal Church in Westtown, and we were trying to get the supervisors to put a marker in. Last night, the supervisors approved the marker.
All right.
So that was step one. Step two is raising $4,000 to buy the marker. So I know some of you expressed an interest in making contributions. So if you would like to make a pledge towards offsetting the cost of this marker, just see me for one of these forms. No money will be collected until we have the entire $4,000 pledge. But again, if you'd like to make any contribution of any size, please see me for one of these. With a rich background in the restaurant industry spanning over 2 decades, Paul Folia is the general manager of Harvest Seasonal Grill and Wine Bar in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania. I'm sure many of you have dined there. He most recently served as an area director overseeing 8 locations across 3 states for Paladar Restaurant Group, overseeing 3,000 employees and $35 million in annual sales. Paul was also a sales manager at U.S. Foods, running a portfolio of over $5 million. He worked in the city of Philadelphia as a general manager for Revolution House. Early in his career, he was the executive chef and then general manager for Triumph Brewing Company of New Hope. Paul started his career in his family restaurant in Trevose, Pennsylvania at 13 years old. Beyond his professional endeavors, Paul finds joy in family, a wife of 18 years, Catherine, and soon-to-be 7-year-old Eloise. Enjoys travel, culinary pursuits, and spending quality time. So please welcome Paul Folia for this interesting presentation.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. How are we doing today?
Good morning.
I just wanted to first say thank you for the invitation. I think I met Dave maybe my 2nd or 3rd day at Glen Mills, and he let me know that my former was supposed to be here, kind of speaking, and asked if I would join in. And I was more than happy to say yes, besides my crippling stage fright. No, just kidding. Not in the restaurant industry, never. We love being on the stage. So thank you very much for having me and hosting me, and I'm very, very happy to be involved in the community moving forward. Dave gave a great introduction for me, and yes, I have been in the industry for about 13 years. I'm sorry, since I was 13 years old. I'll let the grays on my beard and in my hair kind of let you know how many years I've been doing that, but it has been about 30 years that I've been in the industry. I have an innate love of hospitality. There is nothing better than how other people feel and how I can make them feel, and that is one of the most rewarding things to me. I did start my career at my family's restaurant in Trevose, Pennsylvania. I then moved into Triumph Brewing Company in New Hope. That's kind of where I got my legs in the industry. I started there as a little old wine cook, worked my way into leadership in the kitchen and eventually an executive chef, and then into front of the house management, and then general manager for that location. Once that kind of got going, I had an opportunity to work in the city of Philadelphia, and I thought this was going to be my pathway into the city. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life in the city of Philadelphia. I got a different calling. I got a calling to a new concept called Paladar Restaurant Group, who are opening their very first location in Pennsylvania. I have an insane understanding of Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board law. I've read the entire code. I understand the entire code. And if you ever have partaken in a ladies' night in the state of Pennsylvania, you have done something illegal, just so you know. With that knowledge, I was the #1 candidate to bring a new concept into Pennsylvania with a liquor license. We then brought in 2 new concepts called Bamba Taco and Bar in Newtown, Pennsylvania, and Malvern, Pennsylvania. Eventually, yes, I was lucky enough to be the area director overseeing 8 locations in Ohio. Pennsylvania, and Maryland. I did that for about 5 years. And in that time, my wife and I had our daughter. It was the absolute joy of my life. And you'll see the smile that's coming on my face right now just thinking about her. And I realized very quickly I was traveling too much. I spent about 125 days in hotel rooms throughout the year, and I was missing too much and just seeing too much through FaceTime. At that point, I did decide to get into food sales and kind of learn that side of the business, right? We're receiving, we're a purchaser. And I loved it. I enjoyed the kind of 9 to 5 lifestyle and the weekends off. But I'll tell you, Costco is very crowded on a Saturday versus a Tuesday. I never saw that before. And as I kind of continued my path with US Foods and grew my portfolio, my wife very kindly looked at me and told me I was miserable. And I thank her very much for that because I was, and I didn't realize it. And it took someone from outside to tell me that I belonged back in restaurants, and that's truly what I love to do. And that's when I got the opportunity to come into Harvest Glen Mills. Harvest Glen Mills has been through kind of a little bit of a challenging time with some leadership. I was brought in to kind of stabilize that leadership. And I am very, very happy in the 6 months that I've been there that we have become a much more profitable, but more importantly, a much more guest-focused and hospitable location. And that's really the joy. But I was brought in here to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 on the restaurant industry. And it was one of the hardest hit industries, absolutely. So back in early 2020, we all know that COVID-19 had a huge impact on various sectors of the global economy. And among the hardest hit was the restaurant industry. And if we think about it, it's a vital component of the economy that provides employment to millions and serves as a cornerstone of social life. But I'd like to explore a little bit about the multifaceted impact of the pandemic on the restaurant industry from March 2020 to the present. Drawing on data from surveys conducted by the National Restaurant Association, it's a different NRA than one that we might have heard about in the political times, and of course my personal experience with it. So I truly believe that the pandemic fundamentally transformed the landscape of the restaurant industry, precipitating a seismic shift in operational models and moreover, consumer behavior. And as restaurants faced unprecedented challenges due to mandatory closures, capacity restrictions, and heightened health concerns, many were compelled to adapt quickly or risk permanent closure. An estimate suggests that as many as 25% of establishments will not reopen. And I think that's a staggering number if we really think about it. 1 in 4 restaurants will not reopen. The immediate response saw a significant pivot towards takeout and delivery services. And as restaurants sought to maintain revenue merely as a temporary fix, it reflected a much broader change in consumer preferences that prioritized convenience and safety over traditional dining experiences. On a side note, I think we all know that Chick-fil-A was one of the most ready to adapt to COVID-19. If you look at their model and you look back at them, they had already pivoted to an insane online presence, an app that was easy to use, curbside pickup, drive-through pickup. They have kind of mastered it. And Chick-fil-A is actually one of the few businesses that grew during the pandemic by a staggering 12%, actually. Yeah, so pretty interesting stuff. But research indicates that even post-pandemic consumers are more inclined toward takeout options than ever before. Consequently, restaurateurs have focused to innovate rapidly, reconfiguring their menus for profitability, optimizing kitchen operations for efficiency, and embracing technology for contactless service. While some establishments have thrived through these adaptations by introducing novel concepts such as meal kits, outdoor dining experiences, others continue to struggle with the financial visibility amongst ongoing uncertainties. And COVID-19 is still very real. So let's talk a little bit more about the initial impact in kind of March 2020 to December 2020. And the onset of the pandemic led to immediate and widespread closures of restaurants due to lockdowns and social distancing measures. According to the National Restaurant Association, the industry ended 2020 with total sales that were $240 billion below pre-pandemic forecast. $240 billion. I personally remember closing my restaurant I was working in Paladar at King of Prussia at the time. It was right around St. Patrick's Day that the first legislation from government came out and said that we were going to be closing for 2 weeks, right? We all know how infamously longer that 2 weeks lasted, almost like the Seven Fishes, a little longer. But if we look at it, when we decided to close our restaurant, one of the hardest things was actually the people. We're a hospitality business. We love serving. Those people love having guests and customers. And I will never forget having to furlough about 400 people. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But if we look a little forward, by December 1st, 2020, more than 110,000 eating and drinking establishments had closed their doors either temporarily or permanently. We also saw a dramatic reduction in employment with nearly 2.5 million jobs lost compared to pre-coronavirus levels. You often will hear people say this isn't a real job. Restaurants aren't a real job. Yeah. I very much disagree. And I can tell you the countless amount of employees that I have that have been able to provide not only for themselves, but for their families in doing what we do. And then at the peak of the initial closures, up to 8 million employees were laid off or furloughed. It's a dramatic number. And the pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to the restaurant industry. And one of the most immediate effects was the impact of lockdowns. Governments worldwide imposed strict stay-at-home orders and closed dining establishments to curb the virus's spread. As a result, restaurants faced sudden and severe declines in foot traffic, leading to drastic reductions in revenue. And dining rooms that once buzzed and activity became eerily silent, and the vibrant communal atmosphere that defined many eateries vanished almost overnight. I'm very often reminded, and my father-in-law actually taught me this one and reminded me of this, but if we all remember the Disney movie Beauty and the Beast, and there's a wonderful song in there called Be Our Guest. I am not going to sing it. I have a much better speaking or orator voice than I do a singing voice. But there's a line in there that says, what is a servant when they are not serving? And that hit our industry very at home. Because besides the financial impact, there was emotional impact of the people who love hospitality. And as we talk about finances and money, and those things are very, very important, but people are really the most important thing. And we had a lot of people suffer from this, both emotionally and physically. But if we look at another significant hurdle, that was supply chain disruptions. I'm sure we all remember trying to get toilet paper or paper towels for our home. But with borders closed and transportation systems overwhelmed, we restaurants struggled to source essential ingredients. Scarcity led to increased costs for available supplies and forced chefs to constantly adjust menus based on what could be procured. The unpredictability of supply chains strained relationships with long-standing suppliers and created a day-to-day struggle to maintain kitchen operations. And one of the biggest sectors hit and one of the hardest items to come across was to-go containers. You can imagine how much the restaurant industry pivoted from about 90% dining in-house to flipping it to about 90% dining outside of the restaurant. And so to-go containers were the hardest thing to source. The other added was staffing. Shortages added another layer of complexity. Many staff members were laid off or furloughed due to reduced operations. And those who remained faced health risks, burnout, and job insecurity. Hiring new staff became difficult as many potential employees were reluctant to return to an uncertain and potentially unsafe work environment, further compounding the operational challenges faced by restaurant owners. I was personally one of the lucky ones during the pandemic, where I went from making over 6 figures to making $18 an hour and less than 30 hours a week. So you can imagine the financial impact we had on my personal life and my family. I had a 2-year-old at home and a wife, and I was trying to figure out if this was the correct industry or how anybody was going to survive and maintain off that. I will say, we'll kind of hear a very constant theme through my talk today is hospitality. And while you as guests are one of the most important portions of hospitality and what we can offer as restaurants, I'll be quite honest and tell you, you're second in my mind, because nothing is more important than my staff. And the hospitality that we show to them is then trickled down to you. And I was lucky enough that of the employees that I did furlough, when we did come to return to work and had limited openings and limited seatings, when I made the phone calls to bring my team back on, I had a 93% retention rate from the staff I furloughed. And I was very, very proud of that. And so that was amazing. I'll never forget one call. His name was Ryan Walsh. And I called him and I said, is your availability the same? We're looking to open this date. I just want to make sure that we're scheduling you the correct days. And he said, Paul, schedule me any day. I can't wait to work for you again. And that was just one of the greatest feelings that I could have. Well, let's move forward a little bit into 2021 and talk about some adaptations and innovations that came from the industry as well. So in response to the challenges posed by pandemic, restaurants had to innovate and adapt quickly. Many operators focused on building their off-premise business, and roughly half of restaurants devoting more resources to expanding this side of their operations. One of the biggest ones was curbside pickup, in-house, and third-party delivery services. If you were lucky enough to be publicly trading in DoorDash or Uber Eats at the time, congratulations. But upgrading takeout and delivery packages also became essential to maintain food quality during transit. So we are very, very proud of the food that we put in, but it is much differently presented when it is delivered to your home 15 to 20 to 30 minutes later versus 90 seconds after it leaves the hot pan and turns to your table. So the service styles underwent significant changes, and a large portion of on-premise dining moved towards outdoors. My gosh, we all remember dining outside, seeing tents, using whatever space we could find. And we took advantage of just about any space available. I had an outdoor dining room in a parking lot, and it worked fine. The adoption of technology accelerated with contactless and mobile payment options becoming crucial. But across all 6 segments of the restaurant industry, which are quick service, fast casual, casual, family, fine dining, and coffee and snack, approximately 40% of operators reported adding tech solutions to their business. So Apple Pay, Google Pay, online ordering, we're all ready to pivot. We at the time had just introduced online ordering prior to the pandemic. It was we brought it on in January of 2020. And thank goodness we did. One of the things that we talk about adaptation and innovations, there's a very common phrase is to think outside the box. I challenge my team to remove the box completely because they were out of stock. We couldn't get to go boxes. Sorry, bad joke. But no, we had to really think differently. And then implementing stringent safety protocols became another priority. Restaurants introduced measures such as contactless delivery, regular sanitation of high-touch surfaces, and health screenings for employees. These protocols aim to protect both staff and customers, building confidence and ensuring compliance with public health guidelines. Visible adherence to these safety measures also fostered trust among patrons wary of contracting the virus. We did daily and nightly sanitizing in our restaurants. We had temperature logs. We had screenings daily. And a couple other good things came from the restaurant industry. It's kind of funny, a little side note. We've all seen our serving trays that your drinks come on and are delivered to your table. And I'll be very, very honest with you, in the restaurant industry, those were never cleaned in between serving one drink to one table to another table. They kind of just went back on a rack and waited for the next drink. And I think one of the very positive things that came from the pandemic was that we really looked at everything that we were doing operationally as restaurants. And you'll now see most restaurants, and we continue to do this, those trays get washed every single time. When they go to one table, they go back to a sanitizing dish machine and get washed. So a lot of good things came from the pandemic as well. Some restaurants also leveraged the crisis as an opportunity to innovate their offerings. The introduction of new menu items tailored for takeout and delivery helped maintain customer interest. And these items often featured comfort food that traveled well and could be prepared quickly, adapting to the challenging needs and preferences of the dining public. We all probably remember family boxes or meals ready to go or created at home. We had create your own guacamole kits that we sent out where we actually just put fresh avocados and ingredients in a little recipe card. We had build your own taco nights for family night. We had Latin comfort boxes as well. But creativity and menu planning allowed restaurants to stand out in a crowded market and attract new customers. And one of the other big ones was community support and engagement. So throughout the pandemic, community support played a crucial role in sustaining restaurants. Local partnerships became vital as restaurants collaborated with farmers, brewers, and other small businesses to source local ingredients and support one another. These partnerships not only helped in managing supply chain issues, but also strengthened community and showcasing a shared commitment to mutual survival. I'll talk a little bit about what's that other famous thing besides food that we like to do in restaurants? Oh, that's drink, right? And liquor, beer, and wine. PLCB shut down as we were controlled. We're fine wine and good spirits we're not selling. Luckily, you're close enough to Delaware that you were probably able to get some stuff. But where we were in King of Prussia, it was very, very hard to get alcohol. We leveraged a partnership with one of our suppliers who was at the time called Faber. They're now called Keystone Spirits. And it turns out that they had a traveling license. This goes back to that very, very well understanding of Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board code. They had a traveling liquor license and they could allow off-premise sales. And so I brought in a box truck of rum, tequila, vodka, and gin. And I let them set up outside my restaurant and sell those bottles to the public. And in the meantime, I sold the juices and the mixes next to it. In that one day, they did what they normally do in a week of sales. And so we were very, very happy to kind of support community where we could. We also saw social media campaigns emerging as a powerful tool for engagement. Restaurants use platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to keep customers informed about new offerings, safety protocols, and special promotions. Storytelling through social media enabled restaurants to maintain a connection with their patrons, sharing behind-the-scenes look at their operations and the people who made it all possible. And these efforts really did foster a sense of solidarity and community spirit. And customer loyalty initiatives were also essential. Many restaurants launched loyalty programs or provided discounts and special deals to frequent patrons. And these initiatives rewarded customers for their continued support and encouraged repeat business. But by showing appreciation for our customers' loyalty, restaurants built a customer base that was more likely to offer support even during challenging times. Some of our guests were so supportive of us. Guests dined with us on the daily to help keep us open. Increased gratuities to our service staff went out more than I've ever seen in my life. It was an amazing, amazing time and really kind of embodied what community can do. We looked differently at food and menu trends. And so with the slowdown in business and restrictions on on-premise dining, many operators streamlined their menus and reduced inventories. If we think about it, when I was working with Paladar Restaurant Group, we went through about 90 cases of avocados a week. That went down to 2 a week. So you can understand the strategy of moving and adapting our menu allowed us to focus on menu items that could be prepared efficiently with smaller crews, ensuring operational continuity and safety. And additionally, some restaurants began selling meal kits, bundled meals, and even groceries to meet customer needs and generate revenue. Yes, we sold toilet paper. We sold eggs. We sold hand sanitizer and other groceries. We had connections to distributors that other people in our community didn't, and we used it as a way to support our community. And we all actually sold those items at cost. I remember early on with our meal kits when toilet paper was really hard to get, and I kind of laugh about it now. We actually gave 2 free rolls of toilet paper within one of our family meal kits. I think that backfired a little bit. It was kind of the, eat here, get gas. But we were very happy to do it. One of our most liked social media posts ever. But comfort foods such as burgers, pizza, pasta, and Mexican specialties became particularly popular, providing a sense of familiarity and solace during uncertain times. And we talked a little bit about workforce trends as well. So before the pandemic, the restaurant food service industry was projected to provide 15.6 million jobs inside 2020 in the economy, and accounting for 10% of all payroll jobs in the economy. Just think about that. That's staggering what the restaurant industry does. Yeah. 10% are in the restaurant industry. However, the impact of the coronavirus led to a significant decline in staffing levels across all restaurants and food service segments. And restaurant employment lost 2.5 million jobs below pre-pandemic levels. And there are 3 key findings when we looked at workforce trends. 62% of fine dining operators and 54% of family dining and casual dining reported staffing levels more than 20% below normal. The restaurant industry is inherently short-staffed on a day-to-day basis. Imagine going 20% shorter. There are nearly 2 million fewer 16 to 34-year-olds in the labor force, which was the most prominent age group employed in the restaurant industry. And restaurants were hit harder than any other industry during the pandemic and still face the longest climb back to pre-coronavirus employment levels. We are constantly still trying to find the correct staff. So let's talk, despite the challenges, our consumer sentiment towards restaurants remain positive. With strong pent-up demand for in-restaurant dining experiences, many customers have become accustomed to ordering takeout, but they still crave the unique flavors and experiences that restaurants offer. Nearly 8 in 10 adult consumers stated that their favorite restaurant's food delivered flavors and taste sensations that could not be duplicated at home. Dining out is an experience, and it's one that we're so happy to provide. But additionally, 6 in 10 consumers consider restaurants as an essential part of their lifestyle, underscoring the industry's importance in everyday life. And the enduring affection for dining out suggests, while the modes of service may evolve, the fundamental appeal of restaurants and dining in remains. And as we look at current trends and future outlook, the industry continues to recover. But several trends are expected to shape our future. The reliance on technology and delivery services is likely to persist, with operators continuing to invest in these areas to meet evolving consumer preferences. On a good day, a casual restaurant would be happy with about 5% takeout of their daily sales. On average, in the past 3 years, most restaurants see 20% in takeout as part of their daily sales. So we can see how it has shifted a bit. But ongoing challenges such as labor shortages and continued supply chain disruptions will need to be addressed. The future of the restaurant industry will depend on its ability to adapt to these changes and continue innovating to meet customers' needs. So as the world begins to emerge from the pandemic, restaurants are now forced on the road to recovery and focus on it. I remember when my wife and I had our baby, and our OB-GYN gave me a really good advice, and you could always pass this advice on. And I remember he said, it took 9 months for your wife's body to develop a baby and bring in that wonderful bundle of joy. He said it's going to take 9 months for her to get back to her regular body and recover from that as well. I didn't think of it as much as that, right? We all think the baby's born and mom is recovered and healthy. And as I looked at it, I lended that towards the restaurant industry at the same time. The pandemic was ongoing for about 2 to 2.5 years when we really look at it. And it's going to take another 2 to 2.5 years to get out of it. And we are just there now in 2025. While financial strategies have been at the forefront of our journey, many restaurants did seek government reliefs and grants. We renegotiated leases and streamlined operations to reduce costs. Financial resilience became a key factor in withstanding the prolonged economic impact of the pandemic. I'll talk to you a little bit about restaurant margins and just how thin they are. We all think that restaurants make a buku amount of money. The average restaurant is happy with an 8% net return. 8%. That's very thin. So we always kind of look at it. We had an opportunity to get some new chairs in our dining room. And each chair cost about $300. So that means I need to sell an additional $3,000 to afford that one $300 chair. So it's a really big impact and a very, very thin margin. But long-term planning has also become imperative. Restaurants are now investing in sustainable business models with an emphasis on flexibility and adaptability. Outdoor dining spaces, diversified revenue streams, and enhanced digital presence are some of the strategies prioritized to safeguard against future disruptions. I remember speaking with my owner. We built this beautiful King of Prussia location that opened in 2017. Gorgeous outdoor dining, but just umbrellas as on our patio. And I said, I really would think we could do like a permanent awning or a retractable awning, something that would give us a little bit more seasonality of that outdoor space. And what a time to build that into your cost in its grand opening, right? Grand opening, you kind of throw a lot of money at restaurants. And my owner said, no, we're not going to do that. And then the pandemic hit, and I had a conversation with him, and he promised me he would never open another restaurant without a covered outdoor dining space. And I thanked him very much for that. But the overall resiliency and future preparedness of restaurants will be defined by our ability to innovate and adapt continually. We have incorporated technologies that have given us digital payment systems, but also customer relationship management tools, what's known as CRM in the industry, to enhance our efficiency. The amount of data that we have on our guests, if you've ever used OpenTable, or if you've ever used Resi, or if you've ever left a Google review, the amount of information that we know about you is staggering. I know your demographic. I don't know your exact address, but I know your demographic. I know your salary. I know how frequently you dine out. And I also know the likes and dislikes that you have based on the reviews that you leave. Very, very interesting stuff. But by embracing these practices, restaurants aim to create a sustainable path forward, ready to face whatever challenges the future may hold. And we talked a little bit earlier about improvements, and improving restaurant strategies involves leveraging that technology, enhancing customer experiences, optimizing operations, and staying adaptable to industry trends. But here are some of the key strategies that restaurants can or have implemented to improve their performance. We've embraced technology like never before. We all remember the days of an ordering pad. That's how I started, right? And trying to read a server's handwriting, it's called a chit. But online ordering and delivery and digital screens inside kitchens have made us more streamlined and efficient. We've invested in robust online ordering systems. We've partnered with delivery platforms to reach a broader customer base. And we've ensured that our website and apps are user-friendly and mobilely optimized. Contactless payment, we've talked about that. And point-of-sale systems, or POS systems. If you look at most restaurants that you've probably dined in, I would say about half of them have upgraded their point-of-sale system in the past 5 years in order to adapt to technology and help with better efficiencies. We've enhanced that customer experience. We use the CRM to personalize service tools to track our customers' preferences and personalize their dining experiences. Nothing is more important than hospitality, and the more data and information that I have on you, the better I can enhance and cater that experience to you. We offer loyalty programs and personalized promotions to encourage repeat visits. We talk about ambiance and cleanliness, and we ensure our restaurant maintains a welcoming ambiance and high standards of cleanliness. I had a former operator that we always like our restaurants to be what we call hospital clean, surgery room clean, and that is how a lot of restaurants have adapted. There is no more of the kind of greasy spoon atmosphere of restaurants. You'll see extremely clean restaurants. We regularly update our decor to keep it fresh and appealing. We use feedback mechanisms. We actively seek and respond to our customer feedback through surveys, social media, and review platforms. And we use this feedback to make continuous improvements. I promise you, when you tell me that you missed this menu item, I honestly do jot it down. I do not consider, oh, this is one person saying they missed this menu item and they want it back. Because what happens is 5 more people come in after you and tell me the same thing. And we use that data to drive our decisions. We've optimized our operations by streamlining our menu. We simplified menus to focus on popular and profitable items, reducing kitchen complexity and improving efficiency. We put together more efficient workflows, organizing kitchen and front of the house workflows to minimize bottlenecks. And we train our staff to work cohesively and efficiently. And one of the biggest ones is inventory management. We use inventory management software and technology to track stock levels, reduce waste, and ensure timely reordering of supplies. We also leverage our marketing and branding. Social media engagement is at its all-time high, but we maintain an active presence on social media platforms, share engaging content, promote special offers, interact with customers to build our loyal following. We use search engine optimization and online presence to optimize websites for search engines to increase visibility. We still need to work on that a little bit because every once in a while we get a phone call that makes a reservation for Harrisburg, but calls Glen Mills. So we need to call Google about that one. We offer unique experiences, offering unique dining experiences such as theme nights, live music, or cooking classes to attract customers and differentiate our restaurants. And then a big focus has shifted to sustainability. We have very many eco-friendly practices, implementing sustainable practices such as reducing plastic use, sourcing local ingredients, and minimizing food waste. We also, in the restaurant industry, obtain green certifications for sustainable practices to appeal to environmentally conscious customers. And then we invest in staff training and well-being. We have comprehensive training, provide ongoing training for staff to improve their skills and knowledge. And this includes customer service, food safety, and new technology. But one of the biggest shifts in the restaurant industry is that we employ well-being. The restaurant industry is hard. We have heard about the grueling hours, the long days, the effects it has on our body. And I will tell you, post-pandemic, this is one of the best things that has happened in the restaurant industry. We are invested in our employees' well-being. When I worked for our family restaurant, I worked 60 hours a week. When I worked as an area director, I talked to you quickly about it. I worked about 60 to 65 hours a week and spent 120 days in hotels. My average weekly shift right now is 45 hours. I have 2 days off where I'm not bothered and I am not expected to answer emails. And the same goes for my staff as well. But we also foster positive work environments by offering competitive wages, benefits, and opportunities for career growth. We offer helplines for free. We offer counseling for free. And we have found that happy employees are more likely to provide excellent service. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am about that shift in the restaurant industry. But the pandemic has undoubtedly caused significant damage to the restaurant industry, affecting millions of employees and altering the way businesses operate. But the industry's resilience and adaptability have been remarkable. We have been right on adapting. I have had tour buses come into my restaurant and say, I need a seating for 50 people. Oh, I made a reservation here. We're 18 guests this evening at 7 o'clock. We've all heard the stories, but we've adapted and overcome. But as restaurants continue to navigate our challenges and opportunities ahead, there is a huge hope for strong recovery and a return to the vibrant dining experiences that both consumers and I cherish. But the journey of restaurants through COVID-19 pandemic is a testament to resilience and adaptability. From facing immediate operational challenges to innovating and engaging with the community, restaurants have navigated a tumultuous period with determination. As we look towards recovery and future preparedness, our experiences during the pandemic will continue to shape the industry's evolution, ensuring that restaurants not only survive, but thrive in the post-pandemic world. And that's the last page. Well, thank you very much. I am happy to, if we have any questions, I'm more than happy to kind of answer those.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. My youngest son has worked for Sodell and some other companies down in the Rehoboth, Delaware area and so on. So I'm familiar with his 80-hour weeks and other things and opening restaurants and so on. Tipping policy. And again, I'm very empathetic to the restaurant industry, but during the pandemic and since then, it seems you're getting a lot of these 22%, 24%, 26%, and historically it's used to 20% and so on. But I find that a little bit annoying that I can understand trying to get the customer to share some of the cost for the staff and so on. But how do you feel about that, and where do you see that going as far as tipping policy?
Yeah, I agree that the tipping policy has gotten out of control. We've all seen the jokes, especially for the non-service industries, where it's just kind of tipping, you know, for the sensation of tipping. One of the questions, so I'll answer it with a story. We often have, you know, wonderful bartender at our Glen Mills location named Dave. And one of the customers told me the other day that I should give him a raise. And my response to that customer was, well, that's your job. And that is my very honest answer and take on it. Tipping is a culture that is very American. It is always up to the customer. We have set our gratuity still at 18, 20, and 22% at the Glen Mills location. I agree some of it has gotten a little bit absurd, but I will say as both a consumer and a person that is works in the restaurant industry, do what you feel is appropriate for the level of service that you receive, and no one will be upset with you. If you feel like you had an extraordinarily good time and you want to be get a little extra, go right ahead. If you feel like you had an okay time and you want to give less, that's okay as well. But I do think that unfortunately it is a cultural thing right now, especially outside the service industry, that is drawing those higher tip percentages up into the restaurant industry. But the decision will always be yours, and we will always recover. If one of my staff members ever was stiff, we've had $0 tips before. I'm not saying that if it wasn't deserved. I've either used the restaurant's money or my personal money to make sure that that server was taken care of for that day. But I think that anything that you do is gracious towards the staff members. Yes, sir.
Expand on the economics a little bit, because the cost of dining out has certainly gone up over the 4 years, much more than the general level of inflation that we hear about on the news. How has that affected how you provide your service?
Yeah, that's a great question. And let's take a look at, I'll answer with your average weekly grocery bill. You've noticed that going up, especially over the past 6 weeks or even the past 2 to 4 years. Your average grocery bill has gone up. The same thing has happened for a lot of restaurants. Our grocery bills have gone up as well. I did see early on, coming out of the pandemic, there was a pandemic recovery fee put on a lot of menus. You've probably come across this, where it was a 3% fee of just getting money for getting money. That left a bitter taste in my mouth. There are some restaurants that have raised prices just to raise prices to kind of make back what they lost during 2020, and that is part of the reason that you see the higher inflation. I will say, in the restaurants that I've worked with, and especially here with Harvest, across all 8 of our locations, we've actually reduced menu pricing over the past 3 menu iterations to offer better value. And there are ways to do that, which is, we talked about sourcing different ingredients and utilizing different products. But the ones that are where you're seeing it a little higher than your normal average daily inflation of either your own grocery bill or your own electric bill, unfortunately, I will be very honest and say those restaurateurs are being greedy. Yes.
What do you envision the effect of tariffs will be on restaurant cost? And how do restaurants deal with that if their costs jump a certain amount? Do they just put a sticker on their menu? Do they reprint menus? How do they handle that?
So tariffs could have a huge change on the economy of restaurants. One of 2 ways. One, you'll see higher dollars come through on menu pricing, or you'll see a shift to local and utilizing ingredients that can be sustained right around your corner. Harvest has done a fantastic job with localizing those partnerships and utilizing local farms and a seasonally sustaining menu. We do use a very large broadline purveyor like US Foods. We use Gordon Food Service. Hurts me a little bit, but the things that we get from them are like chemicals and soap and takeout containers. When it comes to sourcing of our ingredients, we do try to utilize local as much as possible to avoid those tariffs. When it comes to menu engineering and pricing and how we shift and change that, the honest answer is we look at things in kind of a different way. We use what's called a P mix or a product mix. And we have things that are what are called dogs, stars, plows, and workhorses. And I know it's very old kind of terminology from a specific point of sale brand, Aloha, that spit those reports out for us. And so there are things that are for us called plows or workhorses that are highly profitable, highly moving. And those we make a lot of money on. And that helps us kind of shift for those dogs in our menu items that are not as profitable. So one of the ways is P-mix engineering is we kind of look at what's selling and what our highest selling items are. And if they're profitable, we can pass through some of that cost without changing our menu price. There are times that we need to change it. I'll be honest, we're getting ready to release our spring menu here in just a few weeks on March 24th. And we had 2 egg dishes on it. We had a deviled egg that looked absolutely fantastic. And we also had an egg salad lettuce wrap for some of our gluten-free friends. And we were very, very excited about these dishes. Unfortunately, as we all know, eggs have jumped from about 16 cents to about 65 cents each. And we have removed those from our menu because we're not going to go to print with them. Some restaurants will update their menu pricing throughout. Most restaurants will just take it as a hit and do it on their next reprint because printing menus comes at a great cost as well. On average, a month, restaurants spend anywhere from $500 to $700 on just printing menus. Yes, ma'am.
Who's in the kitchen in the restaurants? We often wonder who's back there cooking. And then the other question is, there are some restaurants that somehow maintain consistency. You go into an Outback and you know exactly what you're going to get, and it comes out just the way you expect it to. How do you achieve that when you probably have changes in the kitchen from time to time?
So we do have changes in the kitchen from time to time. We try to be as consistent as possible by utilizing recipes and menus. We have stringent line checks that we do every day to ensure quality and consistency. So we take a lot of the kind of smart practices from some of those huge corporations like Outback, or if we talk about Darden or Landry's Group or some of these larger restaurant groups, we'll take steps from them to ensure a great quality product and make sure that we hit it the same way every day. Part of the reason I'm the size that I am is because of an AM line check and a PM line check that happen daily, where we eat everything that's on the line and being prepared for you. We have specific kind of charts to look at and make sure that we're hitting the flavor profiles that we want. So that's how we kind of broaden the gap with consistency. I will tell you that there are certain restaurants that do it much better than we do, and there are certainly restaurants that do it much worse than we do. Darden Group, Outback Group, they have very, very stringent line checks with that. But I will also tell you that their churn rate is about 200% for managers. So they are following the book, they are working the book, but they don't have consistency and leadership to do it. So imagine if you had the same leader following those same profiles that we wanted for flavor and texture and consistency, you'd have an even better product. I'm just going to kind of keep working left to right, so I'll come back around. Yes, ma'am.
Quick comment before my question.
Sure.
When fall comes, please don't ever drop the butternut squash soup. That's become
Yes.
standard with our Thanksgiving meal.
You're part of the group that pickets outside my restaurant. Yes. Okay.
But my question is, I've always wondered about how a restaurant handles it when a lot of people are coming in, whether there's a reservation or not. What about the time? How long do you think the average couple would stay there? Do you ever factor that in? If someone has come in and they're told it's a 20-minute wait, how do they know that?
Yeah, so this is affectionately known as cooking your books in the restaurant industry. And technology has really kind of helped this. We use Resi as our kind of platform for this. I can tell you that a two-top spends anywhere from an hour and 17 to an hour and 21 minutes in my restaurant. I can tell you that a four-top spends on average an hour and 35 to an hour and 45 minutes. I can tell you that a six-top is typically over 2 hours, from anywhere from 2 hours to 2 hours and 15 minutes. So we use a lot of data to drive those decisions in order to stagger our books. There are allowable limitations that we have inside Resi or other online reservation platforms that say, we're going to take this many guests per 15 minutes because we know this is what the restaurant can handle. We know the churn, the turn time of that group size. We know what tables can handle those group sizes. And we're also able to cook our books. So for Valentine's Day, the numbers go down actually because it's a lot of two tops. It's, you know, sometimes I question the three tops on Valentine's Day, but that's a different story. But it's a lot of two tops, and we know that it's usually a much faster pace, what we call turn and burn. And we will actually adapt our books for those days in Valentine's Day. So just this past Valentine's Day, kind of that Thursday through Sunday that we led up to it, we actually brought our average turn times down for two tops to an hour and 6 minutes instead of the hour and 15 minutes, because we knew we would have the ability to handle that. I will tell you this, part of this, the second part of your question, how do we know it's a 20-minute wait time? Again, we're utilizing that data, and for the majority of times, we're lying to you. If you want the absolute truth, we are telling you that it's 20 minutes, and it's most likely 10 to 15, because guess what? If we seat you in the next 10 to 15 minutes when we told you it was a 20-minute wait, how great do you feel and how efficient does my restaurant look? But if I seat you 25 minutes later or 30 minutes later in that 20-minute wait time, how terrible does my restaurant look? So yes, the honest truth is we embellish a little bit. Yes, please.
what is the average length of time that wait staff stays at one location?
Varies restaurant to restaurant. You'll have your lifers. You'll have the people that have been with you for 15 years, as long as the establishment has been open. But if we look at it, the average turnover rate in restaurants is about 150% when it comes to front of the house hourly staff. So that means we're changing about 2 to 4 people every 30 days.
Out of how many?
Currently a staffing of 60 people in my location. And so it comes with an innate cost as well. Training costs a lot of money. Payroll costs a lot of money. So we look at ways to foster great community spirit, great employee appreciation to kind of negate that. So we've actually, in our location, we've reduced our churn rate by about 30% since I took on. I love numbers and data and kind of fixing things, but more than that, I love hospitality. And if we can lead with hospitality and ensure a great time with our staff and actually listen to them, we can actually keep those employees longer. There's a joke inside our restaurant, and if you talk to any staff member that I've ever worked with, whether they be an hourly management, whatever, there's a joke with me is that I never leave the restaurant because it takes me about 20 minutes to a half hour to leave. When I've decided, okay, my shift is over, the restaurant's in a good place, we're firing on all cylinders, I can, go home to my family. I will then take the next 20 to 30 minutes saying goodbye to every single one of my staff members. And inevitably, one of those staff members will say, can I get 5 minutes? Can I talk to you about something? And I have found that by having that practice, and on the inverse, whenever I arrive to work, I say hello to every single one of my employees. And just that small practice has helped reduce our churn.
Wow.
Question. At the end of the day in the restaurant, what happens to all that food that was fresh and it's no longer fresh? Is it discarded? Is that incorporated into your prices as a percentage? Does it go to a local food bank? What happens there?
So the first part of that is we really kind of know what we're going to sell ahead of time. Again, data helping drive decisions. We know on average that we're going to sell 60 chicken breasts or 150 pounds of ground beef, whatever it might be. So we'll work very closely on a PARS and inventory system to mitigate waste. Oftentimes, waste or leftovers are used for staff meal. We have a 100% free staff meal for our entire team. Not one of our staff members pays for their food ever. They are allowed to enjoy what they want when they want. Well, not at 7 o'clock when they're serving you, but they are allowed to enjoy it when they do. There have been times where we have over-ordered and we've donated to local food banks. But most of the time we run pretty tight margins and tight ordering that we really don't have much waste. Most of the time it'll go home to a family member. I will tell you during the pandemic, when we shut our restaurant down, we had a daily staff meal for our staff, even though they were all furloughed, they weren't working. They knew that they could come to our restaurant and get a meal for themselves or a meal for their family. So we continued that as a best practice. And then the other part of it is we do a lot of great volunteer efforts. We work very closely with Manna and Phil Abundance, and we volunteer with them. And so when we do have products that are left over or they're sourcing, we can send some stuff their way. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I've often wondered, we are neighbors to the mushroom capital of the world. And but you go into a restaurant, you very rarely find mushrooms more than just a decoration on an entree. And I just wonder why it's not available as a nutritional side dish.
So I can tell you on our current menu, we offer our Kennett Square mushroom cheesesteak, which is actually a vegetarian dish. There is no cheesesteak meat on it whatsoever, and we do utilize those local mushrooms. We actually partner with them to make a specific mushroom mix for us that eats and feels like cheesesteak meat, but is made from the waste product of mushroom, actually from the mushroom form. I will tell you that we also have a Kennett Square mushroom bisque coming on our menu on March 24th as well. So we do try to highlight the local as much as possible. and utilize it where we can. I have a very good friend that lives in West Grove, and when the wind shifts correctly, I can smell those farms, and it reminds me that we need to have it on our menu. So yeah, we try to use it as in many places as possible. There is still, if we look at trends and data, fungi are not as friendly or popular on menus currently. If we look at national data, and so that's probably where you see a little bit of hesitation for restaurants putting them on their menus.
So let me just take a survey. Those that like mushrooms, raise their hand.
There you go.
I think it would be great as a side dish, as a vegetable side dish. The Japanese that have the longest lifespans eat mushrooms at all 3 meals.
Correct.
And it's very nutritious, but to find it around here, I can put on one hand the number of restaurants that offer mushrooms as a dish in itself.
Gotcha. I'll add it to my notes and talk to the powers that be. Yes.
What have the more prevalent dietary concerns done to the restaurant industry? I know in Harvest you offer gluten-free, say ones that are over 500 calories, but just in general, are restaurants paying more attention to gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan offerings?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great website called Data Essentials that really looks at trends inside restaurants and where they have been, where they are, and where they're likely predicted to go. And you can utilize this website and you can type in anything you want, vegan, and it'll show you how that has shifted inside the industry. Moreover than anything, I think there's 2 schools of thought on this. When you come to kind of the casual dining restaurants, we try to cater to every single guest that we could possibly have enter our building, right? And so you'll see an increase of vegetarian items or an increase of vegan items, or you'll see an increased knowledge of dietary restrictions or allergens inside certain recipes. And then there's a different shift as well in the restaurant industry in more of the fine dining sector or chefs that are trying to make a name for themselves. And I do in a sense agree with this one, is too bad. This is the way the dish comes, because this is how hard I've worked on it as a culinary professional to make this dish the way it is. And I will not substitute it and I will not change it. And I'm sorry that you have that dietary restriction, but this dish isn't for you. And I'm quite proud of both of those, actually. I think that there's establishments for those guests that want and don't want changes, and they want to have what, you know, the culinary operator wants to provide. I am very lucky that I don't have any food allergens or dietary restrictions. I despise ketchup and raisins personally, but they won't, you know, hinder my lifestyle. So I think you will see more in the casual dining sector, people rising to the challenge and understanding of those dietary restrictions or needs. Sometimes they're just needs, they're not necessarily restrictions. And then you'll see on the other part of the kind of upper echelon, focusing more on this is how you're going to get it. Yes, sir.
Much of the restaurant expenditure is discretionary. How has the restaurant industry recovered relative to other discretionary type of spending? Hotels, travel, cruising, has it been stronger or less strong?
So restaurants have probably bounced back better than other hospitality industry segments when we look at it. The hotels specifically need to run at about 85% booking capacity in order to be profitable. So 85% of the rooms need to be booked kind of on a monthly basis in order to be profitable. Luckily with restaurants, I can seat half my dining room and still be profitable. So we've been able to kind of much more quickly recover. And also as we kind of expanded outside of COVID and we came, you know, let's say 2023 forward, travel was much more local. It was a lot more car trips and day trips and experiencing the local restaurants versus traveling on a plane. I know personally I didn't get on a plane until just this past summer because that's when I was ready to. So you'll see the impact that that's had versus your local establishments.
Everybody in Southern Delaware in the restaurant industry knows each other. And many of them are very close friends, and they shift around and they attend each other's weddings or birthday parties and stuff like that. I find that a very interesting phenomenon, in spite of competition.
Oh yeah, the industry is extremely communal. I would never say that you shouldn't go to that restaurant because I probably have a friend that works there. Right down the road is Harry's and Kid Shalene's. Chef Joe Tiss is a personal friend of mine who's the head of their culinary directions for that restaurant group. So it is very much a community spirit, as much as we all want a piece of the pie. There has been a shift to that. Probably in the 90s, that didn't happen quite as often. But we did realize when we talk about community, we're all just sharing the same people. I remember when I worked in King of Prussia, we had, our restaurant Paladar there. We had Founding Farmers 7 feet away from us. We had City Works 12 feet away from us. We had Davio's 15 feet away from us. And then 3 other restaurants inside there, and then 2 fast casual concepts as well. And we very quickly realized that we weren't always going to get every single customer that came into the town center. But what I had was, when I see you in the window at City Works, I'll wave and I'll see you next time. And that we kind of just shared the wealth.
I've seen similarities between your restaurant and Seasons 52. Is there a corporate relationship there? And if so, why are the names different?
So we have no part of Seasons 52. We have no stock or shareholding inside of whatsoever. I often answer this question with, if we look back and say, who did the mini desserts first? It was us.
Also, the architecture is similar.
It is, yes. We were one of the first groups to look into low calorie. So we stem from Doc McGrogan, and we stem from McGrogan's and Kildare's in Westchester. That's where Harvest comes from. So Dave is our CEO and owner. He was a chiropractor for many, many years that had an innate understanding of hospitality. And so we started kind of the Irish pub and the restaurants back in the 90s. That's how our group started. And then we evolved to Harvest. We did open a Harvest before Seasons 52. We won't get into a legal battle about that. But yeah, you'll often see very similar concepts. The way I liken it is when you see successful brands, there's no better form of flattery than imitation. And so that's when you kind of see Carrabba's and Olive Garden. Very similar, right? Longhorn and Outback, very similar. So there's no mutual participation, and there's no harm or foul with the group either.
Good question. Do you know what happened to Maggiano's in King of Prussia?
Yes. Let's see, how far into this do I want to go? Because I knew the GM there.
It was really good. Breakfast, lunch, right next to something bakery.
Corner bakery. Yes. Part of the same group. Unfortunately, when you become as large as some of those restaurant groups are, you can very quickly and very subtly close one of your restaurants that isn't performing well. I've had the unfortunate, in my career when I worked with Paladar Restaurant Group, I closed 4 of our locations. We used to be a 12 restaurant group, and I had to close 4 of them. It is one of the hardest things you'll ever do as a person, because no one knows. You're the only one that knows, because you can't tell them, because you'll have mutiny, you'll have theft, you'll have people not showing up, and you won't be able to, have your one last hurrah. So basically, you go in there on a Sunday night and you say, "This is the last night. I'm locking the doors. Please leave." It is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. I will say, as our group and groups that I've worked for, the way that we've done it has been a little bit different, where yes, we still do it the same kind of closure, but we then, as we talked about well-being for our staff, we have letters of recommendation ready for them. We know what restaurants are hiring in the area, and we've also set up interviews or talked to managers to offer them positions. And so there is that kind of shift. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen in the larger groups.
A lot of work.
It is. Yes, sir.
A lot of poor reviews I noticed are about the diner's not happy with the quality of his food or his drink. and management doesn't address their issue. What's the best way if you've got some problem with what you've been served to bring it and get it resolved?
Great, thank you. 100%. So here, there's two ways. One, it's our responsibility to hit 100% table touches within our restaurant and make sure that we're trying to find out the pulse of our restaurant and what's going on. The other thing is be honest. That's the biggest thing that I can say to you. Please don't bottle it up and please don't give us an opportunity to not help you. The hardest ones that we have are when we didn't know about it. If you don't like something or something's not cooked to your temperature or it has too much ice in it, whatever it might be, let us know. We are in the hospitality industry. We are so happy to fix it and make it right for you. We'll often call it challenge tables. I know that I've had some challenging times with some different guests where I think they're never going to come back to this restaurant ever because they're so disappointed in their experience. And my goal is to make you come back, and I will throw whatever I can at you. And that's not always a free item. Sometimes it's just a conversation. But beyond giving you the keys to the building, I want to make sure that you return. So give us an opportunity in the moment to fix it, and we're more than happy to resolve it.
Paul, thank you for
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.